Welcome to Dialogue 340. So today we want to talk about the housing crisis in terms of home ownership, right? So let me introduce my guests. Well, actually, I'll let my guests introduce themselves, right? So let me start off with Shomari.
Good day, Darren. My name is Shomari Moorehead, tech guy in St. Croix, homeowner, commercial property owner as well.
All right.
Chris Hanley, owner of Farchette and Hanley Real Estate. Been doing real estate here for 37 years and
Ooh.
took over a family business and still keeping it rocking.
All right. And of course, everybody knows Sai.
See,
He's part of the family.
DJ Yesai, right? Dialogue, I made it. And
See,
you're absolutely
exactly
not
right.
hosting too, so
There you go.
yeah.
So I want to say, so I'm glad you guys are here. So I want to talk about this subject, right? So I want to start off with Chris because this is his field of expertise, right? So, as we know, there's many issues with the real estate in the Virgin Islands in terms of home ownership, right? We have a variety of issues, right? We're talking about the ever-increasing costs of owning a home. We have financing options, through local banking, and we may have a limited stock of homes, right? So let me pass out to Chris with this question, right? What would you say, from your aspect, what would be the top three issues that make it difficult for VA residents to own a home?
The top three issues would be affordability,
Mm-hmm.
affordability, and affordability. Homes are very expensive right now. And so it's hard to qualify to purchase a home. With the interest rates elevated the way they are, combined with the cost of construction, resulting in a higher priced cost of building a home, you got to make a fair dollar amount. You got to make a pretty good amount of money to qualify for a loan to buy a home at this price level. If the prices could come down and the interest rates could come down, that would change. But right now we're stuck in this rut.
Ooh, so let's talk about what the average version is. Just let's say we're talking about, middle range, middle income family. By your expertise, what would it cost? How much would it cost for them to go and get a finance? Like, what would they have? What would they be their pre-qualifiers? How much would they have to make? Basically, just give
Yeah.
us your.
Well, there's like a rule of thumb that if you have good credit, you can borrow 2.5 times your income. So let's say you make 50,000 a year. Generally speaking, if you have good credit, you can borrow 150,000 for a purchase of a home, plus the down payment. So whatever you have to put as a down payment. Now, a lot of people struggle with a down payment because, they're living day to day, paying WAPA, paying all their bills, food costs, everything else. So, not a lot of people have that extra cash. So that's where like FHA, 5% down, the VI Slice program. There's some programs out there to assist, but still, I mean, even if you say you had 50 grand in the bank, you could put towards that. So you're buying a house for 200 grand. I mean, you can't really get a house that's what you're going to want for 200 grand. So it's an income issue and it's a pricing issue. And until we can figure out how to solve that, then we're going to be kind of in this like ongoing issue, which is very frustrating,
Okay.
but it is what it is.
Thank you for that. Shamari, as you know, you're a homeowner and also commercial properties. What was your experience in buying homes in the Virgin Islands and commercial property, and how did you overcome it?
Like Chris said, the cost of homeownership is very expensive. The financing, banks here are very, very rigorous. When I first bought my first home in Atlanta, we were able to do a 3% down,
Ooh.
you know, to buy the home. Now you don't have programs like that in the Virgin Islands. Plus, the cost of the homes are to the point where most people can't afford them. And cost of insurance and all those additional fees that go into it. And in the process, we sold our house in the States before we came back. That was done in 27 days. It took us 5 months to buy the house here in St. Croix.
Ooh, 5 months is a long time.
Yeah, from the day we put in the offer to the day we closed, 5 months. And, all of those things play into the factors of buying. And then, inventory. Most homes here, people are asking for a lot more than they're worth. And so when you have people who have the capital to do it, if you lived in the States and you bought a home 15 years ago for 200,000 and you sold it for 600, you could come to the St. Virgin Islands and put down $400,000 and get $1 million home. How many people here can actually afford that? So all of these things come into play. Being an American possession, you can just come in from anywhere and buy homes. So
in a lot of the stateside markets, a starting home is around $1 million now.
yeah,
If you're near a city like Atlanta or San Diego or Boston or wherever, New York, it's kind of like $1 million and up, really, for the kind of home you're going to want to live in. Now, you're going to settle for less? Yeah, you will, because you need a house, but.
But that sounds a lot. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, with that, I know I'm not hosting, but I do have a couple of questions with that information. And recently, I posted something that got some attention. You can understand, or at least I could understand, the prices of, a Brooklyn home. California, LA is kind of crazy because even a rundown with literally holes in the roof. You're talking about
it's a land this big.
With that, and that you 1.2 million.
Yeah, exactly.
When you don't have a roof.
Yeah.
But there's so much industry around these areas that are going on. You have, great schools, some sort of booming economy. Yeah. What is that like predetermining factor of why the prices are the way they are here in the Virgin Islands with the economy what it is?
Well, it's basically, it's a free market. So the market, it's supply and demand, right? So it's how many people are wanting it versus how much is available, just like any commodity. And so when there's not a lot to pick from and you got a fair number of people wanting it, which is what we got here, we got a lot of people looking to get a house, but there's not a lot to pick from, that raises the price, so that makes the value go up. And so that cuts out a lot of people. So the only thing you can do to get more people into the market is to raise their income. They have to have more income. If you're not making enough money to qualify for the loan, the guy that's making the income is going to get the house because he can afford the loan, and you know what I'm saying? He's going to get it. So, but that's the way it is everywhere, and we just. I
think if you add inventory, right? If you add townhomes, we don't have a townhome community here. We have a lot of old condo style apartments, the ones in Orange Grove and Golden Rock area. But you don't have a lot of neighborhoods with, like, let's say 10 to 30 townhome style communities, whether gated or ungated, that you can bring the cost down. And then the cost of building, people say it's the cost of material. For me, it's been the cost of labor. We're trying to build that house.
Availability of labor too.
And availability of labor. So if you have all these federal projects going on right now, where they're building new schools, trying to build a hospital, and you don't have the labor to do it, those who have the skills are going to go do the projects where the federal government doesn't mind paying a premium for that. We can't pay a premium for that. So when someone's telling me, hey, I'm trying to put on a roof on a 2,000 square foot house, $65,000 just for labor, just for rafters, and
just for the roof.
Not the roof, just the rafters and the wood.
Oh, okay.
Labor alone. Yeah. Not material, not the purlins, not the waterproof, and not the galvanized.
Yeah.
That drives the cost up.
Well, your point about townhomes is very good, because in the States, a lot of places, there's a much more efficiency in building townhouses because they're shared walls. So instead of having to build 4 walls and a roof for one house sitting on one piece of land, you can take that same piece of land and then you can build townhouses where they're sharing walls. It's a much more efficient one roof covering lots of homes.
Yep.
Now, there may be fewer buyers for that because the American dream is like, oh, I want a yard with picket fence. I want fence it off for my dog, my kids to play and all that. So you're giving up a little bit of that, but you are getting like a garage and, you are getting a better price. So that's something we should be focusing on, I think, when it comes to developing. And also we have height limitations. So if you take a piece of land and we have a 3-story limit, generally speaking, then you can only go this high with that one piece of land. But if you could keep building up and up, you get more efficiency the more you can go. So if we go to 6 or 8 stories, we don't really want to see these tall, huge, like high-rise buildings here. But I mean, you could go higher up too. So there are efficiencies that can be done, but we aren't doing it right now.
I think the townhome was a great one. That was my first home. My first home was a townhouse.
Great yard, a great way to get into it.
Great way. It was just my wife and I. We still own it. But like you said, right, you have 6 units in a building. I think ours has 4 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
Where you only have to do front and back walls for each additional unit. You have the shared walls in between, and then one roof. We had the roof replaced for the property a couple of years ago. It was one cost for
one big roof
versus me paying out $60,000, my neighbor paying out $60,000.
Yeah.
It's 100 and something thousand for all 6 units.
Yeah, and that goes for like infrastructure too, like cistern pump. the cistern. All those roofs, all those people's units fill in one cistern, one pump pumping the whole place. So there's efficiencies of scale there. You know what I mean? So that's one approach we could take, but no one's doing it.
And as you grow, then you can go into a bigger home. And now you have
Yeah.
equity that you've built in this townhome
Yeah.
that you can use to buy something else.
Generational wealth, basically.
Correct.
And then sell it to the next young person coming up. That's their starter. They get into it. They learn about home ownership, what's involved.
Yeah.
And then they can graduate on to the next level. So.
I mean, I think we kind of have that. We don't have the town home market, but we definitely have the condo market. You know what I mean? And how much on average, are some of those condos like out in it's not Harborview, but out in
by like
Condo Row.
Condo Row, yeah.
Right. And
But those are all
what
old.
those?
Those are old. Those are
built in the
old.
60s and 70s. Those
Yeah.
are-
However, how much is it per condo right now?
Well, it depends. So you got Mill Harbor on the west end, then you got Colony Cove, and then you got Sugar Beach, and then you got Club St. Croix.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll range. Sugar Beach is probably the higher priced ones because their building is this way, and all the units see the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Colony Cove, if you're in the back, it's cheaper. If you're up front where there's a view, it's more. People pay for the view.
Mm-hmm.
So Colony Coves are in the 3s, 4s if you're up front. One just went for like late 2s, and then Sugar Beach is like 3s and 4s and 5s, and then so kind of in that general price range. But a lot of people, especially local people here, they don't really want to live on the water with the salt spray and all that, and they don't really care so much about view. People here, we want like land we can use. We want a yard. We want flat area. So I always try to tell people there's really two markets here. There's what the stateside market, people that are coming down to come on as a second home or a vacation home. And then there's the local market. Okay, they're two different distinct markets.
Yeah.
There is some overlap there, but generally speaking, they're two distinct. And so those kind of like Condo Row, that appeals to the stateside. They want to be on the beach, they want to see the ocean, all that. Whereas the local people tend to be like, I just want a yard, I want my own area, my little
My
kingdom,
little tree.
my little world. Yeah. So it's two separate things. So most of the local people are like, I don't really care for a view. But 90% of the people I get coming in from the States, they're all about the view.
Yeah.
And so that's what.
and they're willing to pay the $300,000 for
They'll
one
pay for the-
2-bedroom condo.
Yeah. And another mistake I see a lot when people here build homes, and now I know they want flat land, I know they want to use their land, I know they want space, they want acreage as much as possible. But if you take, say, $500,000 and you build a house on a half an acre here in a State Whim or Carlton or wherever, or even in Cotton Valley down flat where there's no view of the ocean, your house is going to be, say, when it's finished, it's going to be worth 500, 550, whatever. Now, but if you went and you built that up on a hilltop with a view of the ocean, a beautiful view, Buck Island, whatever, now that house is worth 750.
Yep.
Okay, now the price you paid for that land in Whim or wherever without a view, maybe it's $40,000, $50,000. But the land you had to buy to get that view was $100,000, right? 50,000 more.
Yeah.
But you made 250,000 more in the value of that house when it's done. So you just made 200 grand on the same house because it has a view. And I see that mistake a lot because people will come to look at their house over in Queens Court or Mary's Fancy or whatever, and they'll say, hey, Chris, I just spent 700 grand building this house. And I'm like, sorry, dude, it's worth 595. But if he had built it where the view of the ocean, 800. That's a simple formula that a lot of people don't realize, and I see it over and over, and to get the word out to people, I know you want the flat land, because the hillside land, you're going to get the view, but you're not going to be able to use the land too much because it's steep. You're going to get a bulldozer and create a flat area for the side for the dog or the playground or whatever. But if you're looking from a financial perspective, ocean view is critical for the end value of the property.
So some things that came out. One question I wanted to ask, going back to the condos, because I think the reason why people don't do it is like HOA fees. What would you say would be like the average HOA fee for somebody who wants to potentially invest into a condo?
They range anywhere. The lowest that there's out there now is like $500 a month, but then they go up. I got a unit listed right now at the very high end, the extreme $1.69 million condo at Carden Beach, where it's like $3,200 a month, and everywhere in between. But the average, I would say, is about $1,000 a month.
Okay. And what would you say if somebody were to be like, oh, I'm paying $1,000 a month? What would that actually cover for a condo?
Depends. Each association is a little different, but generally, half of the HOA fee at a condo is insurance. That's a big chunk because our insurance here is very expensive, right? We're in the hurricane zone and all that. We know that game. But the other half is really the actual maintenance of the groundskeeping, maintenance of the exterior of the building. Remember, when you own a condo, you only have to worry about the inside.
Yes.
Your HOA fees pay roofing repairs, windows and doors in most cases, railings, exterior repairs. So that's takes a little off the wallet.
Exactly.
And I get a lot of people say to me, "Oh, Chris, I don't want to buy a condo because these fees are so crazy. I'd rather own my own house. It's going to be cheaper." But I say, don't. That's a fallacy.
Yeah.
The reality is, by the time you add up either having someone mow your lawn or you doing it yourself on weekends, maintaining your roof, your cistern, your pumps, your electric, it's about the same. And oftentimes the condos are actually cheaper.
I think somebody needs to hear this, right? So I wanted to go back another thing we talked about. We talked about the amount of inventory that's there in terms of houses, right? So something that sparked in my mind is I could think about places on island that just has so much land that's unused. Like I could think when you drive past DV Carina Bay, you could see like there's so many acres not being used. I could think about north side when you go like you're heading towards Cane Bay, a lot of land unused. Why do we have so much land unused, and how can we tap into it if we can? Let me ask that to you, Chris.
You know who the largest owner of land in the Virgin Islands is?
The Virgin Islands government.
Yeah, government. Yeah, and they're trying to buy more all the time. They don't like to sell; they like to buy. I think that's a mistake for a couple of reasons. One, they can't charge tax on it. So if you got a piece of land that could be earning, $2,000 a year or $500 a year or whatever on property tax, if the government owns it, they get zero. So they really should be selling this land to the people, and they should be financing it for the people, and they should be doing either very low interest loans or no interest loans to get it in the hands of the citizens of the Virgin Islands.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed, and there's a rule called the Fair Housing Act where you can't discriminate from one group to another, but I think there could be a way around it where, like, native-born Virgin Islanders should have an upper hand to get land and do it under special terms. Maybe it's available to everybody under a certain set of terms, but if you're born and raised here, I think you should have an upper hand. It should maybe no interest, whatever, no down payment. I don't know whatever. That's up to them to figure it out. But there's no sense in all of this land being held in the government of the Virgin Islands, not providing space for people to build and to collect property tax.
That is very interesting. Let me ask this question to Shomari. Why do you think we are hoarding so much land? Like, you would think, just based on what Chris is saying, like, at least from the aspect of collecting tax, we have a declining population because a lot of it is because they can't get housing. Why are we holding on to this much land? Why do you think they have that perspective?
We like to hoard stuff. And I would say because in some ways it seems like it's equity, it's capital to wealth to own this, right? For some of it, it's historic. You want to create parks, you want some green space, which is fine.
Like Maroon Ridge.
Maroon Ridge, for example, 2,000 something acres, that's historical. So you want to keep that for a park. But because we didn't really have a proper land use plan, and we finally got one earlier this year, there was no plan for how to develop this land. It was kind of like, okay, well, we're going to buy this land, or we're going to hold on to this, or we're going to use this for that. There was no real plan. So now that we have a plan, we can actually go back and look at it and say, okay, well, hey, now we have a land use plan. Where we're going to put development, where we're going to put housing, how we're going to handle water and drainage and all these things. Now we can start to reevaluate the conversation of, okay, well, what do we do with this land? And the second part is, how do we bring the cost of building down? Because for the next 10 years with all those federal projects, it's going to be, unless we bring people in,
which you have to,
and then where are you going to host them, right? Because we don't have
where are they going to live?
Where are they going to live?
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's a kind of a catch-22 situation. You don't have a place. You don't have people to build. You need to bring people in to build, but you don't have a place to house the people to build the things you need to build. So that is one of those big things that we have to do the numbers on. We have to look, and we have to look at the data. It's kind of like gas prices, right? The market has been fluctuating for years. Why is gas still $3.99? I know it's a whole different conversation.
But I think we're all thinking that.
Correct. It has not moved. It has not.
It
It has not gone up. So I looked at concrete, for example. Anguilla has one road that goes east to west. Cost of concrete is $175 for a 3,000 psi. The cost of concrete for a 3,000 psi in St. Croix It's $230.
And
I just paid $280.
Jesus, bro.
So how is it Little Anguilla, right, has lower cost concrete than Big St. Croix
What
with
is
all
it?
of these projects? So you think about economies of scale. I would expect that, okay, we have all these projects. We're building a new Arthur Richards. We're trying to build a new hospital. We just did some work with the Hamilton Jackson, Safari. All these projects require concrete. You would expect that, okay, we can bring the cost of material down, but it's not. It's going up.
Up.
When I started this house that we built, it was $199. Now it's $230.
I feel like that spirals back into the same situation when I had asked you about predetermining factors of cost. And okay, we need to have a call for the income to be raised here, but what is in place for that to happen? As soon as that happens, now prices go up even further, and we're kind of spinning or chasing our own tail with what exactly that root issue
Yeah.
of the problem.
Yeah. There's actually, so we got to get over the stigma that we have here that you can only build a good solid house out of concrete. People are always like, gotta be concrete, gotta be concrete. Well, they have engineered homes now that are made by computer systems in the States. There's one company in particular called Thermosteel. I have a 2,100 square foot Thermosteel building that I haven't built yet. It's in a container. I haven't even unsealed the container. I was about to break ground on it when Maria hit. And once Hurricane Maria hit, I put the timeout on it because I didn't know what was going to happen, right? But I still have this building. So there's 3 Thermosteel buildings on this island right now. I've sold one of them several times. Bulletproof, highly insulated. They have an R47 insulation rating. They go up like an erector set. So it's not like it cuts the labor down way down. So the only concrete part of it is the cistern, the patios, if you're going to do a pool, the pool, whatever, driveway. Once you're done, then you're done with the concrete. There's no blocks, there's no rebar. Now it's just literally these things. And if you go on YouTube and look up Thermosteel Inc., ThermaSteelinc.com, Thermosteel Inc., it'll blow your mind. You see these guys putting houses up quick. And they're also rated for 220 mile an hour winds.
It's really
They
important.
don't burn, and termites don't eat them.
So Thermosteel, Dialogue 340, if you want to contribute.
I'm just telling you, I'm not pushing the product. I have one of the buildings, but haven't seen a house in action. And it's right on a really busy road, right? So you're like thinking, man, his truck's whizzing by. You got water trucks with no muffler, like going by. But as soon as you go in that house and close the door, because it's so well insulated, and it has impact glass doors and windows too that are thick and heavy, it's like quiet in there. It's like living in a Yeti cooler. And the whole house is powered by 5 kilowatts of solar, which is a very small solar system. And they're running AC 24 hours a day. No WAPA bill.
Wow.
Woo!
How does the steel
Yeah,
hold up to the salt air?
I mean, you got me intrigued now.
But how does the steel hold up to the salt air? Because that's one of the things that, metal here with the salt in the air, even if we're not on the coast, like we have a house in Wim, right? We're not on the water. We're a mile away. But we still have issues of corrosion. The minute that we open the windows, the moisture in the air. Bought a brand new refrigerator from Home Depot, stainless steel, and you see little pockets of steel all over it.
Yeah.
How does?
So it's galvanized steel. So it is, if it's exposed to salty air, which we have here. So on the waterfront, it's going to be. What I'm going to do with mine before I actually build it is I'm going to paint with a powder coated paint, like a high power epoxy, probably not powder coated, but an epoxy paint. Okay. So it's steel frames with this polystyrene structural foam in between.
Okay.
So it is an issue, but rebar, you've seen a lot of spalling with rebar popping too. So some of these older houses that were built in the 70s where the rebar is too close to the surface area and moisture gets to it, because remember, concrete is porous. Yeah. So once that water gets to it and it starts to rest, it get wet, it expands as it rusts, pop. So that's still an issue with concrete. So
I have a new rebar though. There's a new
it's like fiberglass rebar.
Fiberglass rebar.
Yeah, expensive, but
expensive. They're using it done by the old hotel next to the Palms. What's it called? Pink one.
Oh yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Hibiscus. So they're using the fiberglass steel there.
Smart.
Because it's on the water.
Yeah.
And the rebar is gonna pop. Cause I looked at it, I was like, why is that steel green? And did some research and I found that it was fiberglass. So On the water, you're not gonna have issues with the steel popping.
Yeah. But the point being that there are other alternatives, and as technologies advance, there's many companies that make similar products. So I'm not just pushing that one, but people need to start getting over the concrete part of it and look at these houses that are made of these, and get online and look at it. You can look at them.
So, guys, we have a wonderful conversation, right? So I just want to wrap it up. We're gonna have a part two to this because there's so much more we need to dive into it. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to give your final thoughts on what we talked about so far today. So let me start with Shomari.
So I'd say one, if we look at the cost of housing and affordability, let's look at the data, right? How are we looking at the cost of land, the amount of land we own, what's buildable, what's not buildable in our land use plan, the cost of labor, right? Are people overcharging for stuff that should be 40%, 50% lower? Do we have any kind of data behind that? What should the cost be? That's a huge part that's missing from the conversation about housing. I think it's something that needs to be looked at seriously.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I think too, people, the American dream is owning a home, right? That's where you build your wealth, and that's true for a lot of people. But sometimes you're better off to rent a house, and so don't think that you're doing the wrong thing by renting. Sometimes renting is right while you get ready to buy or build. So keep an open mind when it comes to that.
Okay. Yesai.
What was the name of that steel company again?
Thermosteel.
Thermosteel. So I'm gonna be emailing you guys.
I want 10%.
Right, exactly. That's good.
What's your final thoughts?
I mean, just hearing about it, I feel like this conversation could really keep going and going because there's still some more questions that I would like to ask with that professional. But my final thought would be we definitely need some sort of at least figuring out and actually defining exactly what that issue is so we could actually address and seeing where things could be brought down.
All right, guys. So, like I said, we still have much more to talk about, so stay tuned. We have more to discuss. Dialogue 340, we're out.